I hope these 5 principles have been helpful to you and help you see the interview process and the entire job hunting process from a different perspective. And I believe if you will take these principles to heart, that you can be successful in anything you put your mind to. In this last section, I'd like to go over a few books and just a couple of my philosophies that have kind of shaped the way that I think about the world and about the job hunting process in general. There's a book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. I'm just going to give you a real quick synopsis of what that book is about and the major things that I learned from it. So he starts off by talking about hockey players in Canada, and he says that there was some guy sitting at a game at this big hockey game. You know, it's one of their cup games, so this is a really big deal. And he's flipping through the program, and he realizes that a lot of the players were born in January, February, and March, and you know, there were maybe a few born in April and May, but then virtually no players had birthdays after like July. And so he started this study, and he looked at all of the hockey players in Canada, and sure enough, all of the top ones, all the ones in the top leagues, were born in the first part of the year. And you know, this is kind of perplexing. It's kind of odd that your ability or your skill level would be tied to when your birthday is. And he kind of talks about this question for a while, and then he comes back and explains that the reason for that disparity is because hockey tryouts happen when kids are like 4 or 5 years old on January 1st, and they compete with everybody who's their same age. So you have, let's say, a 5-year-old who was born on January 2nd competing against a 5-year-old who was born on December 31st. Well, there is an entire year difference of skill level in those two. And at 5 years old, that's 20% of your life difference between this person that you're competing with. So you have the kids who were born in January, February, and March who are noticeably larger, noticeably more talented than those who were born later in the year, simply because these tryouts happen at such a young age. He says this is a really common problem, actually. If you look at sports around the world, soccer in Europe or in South America, for example, these tryouts, because those sports are so important to those cultures, the tryouts happen at a really young age, and those who are really good at that age, within their age group, they're the ones that get sent to the summer camps, you know, the extra camps and training and things to get them even better. And the ones who are not as good, they just play in the lower leagues and, you know, the free play type of games. And so there becomes even a larger disparity between these groups as time goes on, because those who were born or had this advantage at a young age continue to gain advantages, and those who were disadvantaged continue to be held back, so to speak. So he talks about this in sports and education. You know, this is kind of something that pops up throughout life, that none of us have actually the same opportunities that we're given. As much as we like to think that we are equal, really we're not. We're each given different talents and different opportunities. We were born on different days. We were born in different states and different cities to different families. We went to different schools. We have all these things that are actually different about us. And the world just isn't set up to make us all equal. It's not really an even playing ground. He then goes into the lives of some of these people who we would consider outliers in our different fields. And he says, you know, anytime a new successful CEO finally reaches the top and they've had a really successful career or whatnot, or done something really successful, the first thing they do is to write a book about how they got there. And they always talk about, you know, it required really hard work, perseverance, sweat, and persistence, and they kind of attribute their success to all of these characteristics, all of the effort that they put into it. But when you look at their life, you realize that actually their deck was stacked in a way. So for example, he talks quite a bit about Bill Gates. Now, Bill Gates was extremely successful, founder of Microsoft, and some of us might be tempted to think, oh, I could be the next Bill Gates. You know, I could have this big influence in the computer world. Well, Bill Gates had a lot of opportunities handed to him. For example, he was born into a family that could send him to a private school in high school. That high school happened to be the first school in California to get computers, and so by the time he got to college, he actually had already had hours of computer programming, and he was way ahead of other people at the university. And so still at that university, he had a lot of opportunities in the computer world. And so by the time he gets into his 20s, he is miles and miles ahead of anybody else in that field because of all the opportunity he had been handed much earlier, just because of where he had been born, what time he was born, the family he was born into. All these things added up into giving him a whole lot of opportunities to become a leader in the computer world. And in some respects, it was kind of his game to lose. He was the natural leader. And if you look at different leaders around the world, you find that their decks were stacked in a way that they had a lot of opportunity given to them. Now, this isn't to say that they don't deserve that leadership role, that they don't deserve that success. They obviously had to put in a lot of hard work, perseverance, blood, sweat, and tears to get where they are, and we're not discounting that. But what Malcolm Gladwell is trying to point out is that sometimes we try to compare ourselves to these people and think that we can do those same things, and to be honest, we can't, because we weren't put into their shoes, into their same situation. Now, if we had been born into their situation, then yes, if we had put in the hard work and the sweat and everything that they did, then possibly we could have been as successful as they were. Another principle he talks about is something called 10,000 hours. They basically looked at successful people in a lot of different aspects of life. So for example, in the arts, violinists or pianists or great tennis players, or all these different things in sports or whatnot. And who those greats were actually correlates most closely to the people who put in the most time. And so it wasn't necessarily some magical talent that they were born with, but the idea here is that it takes about 10,000 hours in one field before you can master that field and really become a master of it. So 10,000 hours is somewhere around 4 hours a day for 10 years, roughly, or 40 hours a week for 5 years. So this is like your full-time job for 5 years or 10 years. At that point, you can really master something. And so what he's trying to do here is show a little bit that it's not so much these talents that we're born with necessarily that determine whether or not we're successful. There's actually a lot that is up to us about the effort that we put into something, and that's what the data correlates most strongly with. Well, by the end of this book, as I was reading through it, I felt a little maybe depressed, thinking, oh, I really can't become anything. All these great people, they had their decks were stacked, and I can't compete against them. So what am I going to do with my life? And at the very end, he kind of flipped the table on me unexpectedly, and he said, every single person is born with their deck stacked somehow. Every person has some unique attributes, some different situation in their life that has made them who they are. They were born into a different family, into a different time, into a different location. And everybody, if you look at where you are in life right now, your deck is stacked to be something great in some field. And if you will put in the hard work and the sweat and the perseverance, then you can actually become a leader in that aspect. Nobody can compete with you because your deck is stacked in that way. And even if other people put in the effort, they're going to have a hard time catching up to you because you're miles ahead of other people in some aspect of your life. So I felt like this was a really encouraging book. Very opened up my mind to a lot of different ideas and concepts and ideas of success. And I hope that you'll take the time to read it and get as much out of it as I did. Now, I should say really quickly, it's been a while since I read the book, and so I've recounted it from memory, the things that stood out for me, and I hope that I got all the facts along the way correct. But mostly, I hope that you'll take the time to go read the book and find what resonates with you.